Welcome to another sit down with Michael Franzese. Today is a follower favorite, Mob Movie Monday. Hey everybody, it is Monday, November 9th, and welcome to another sit down with Michael Franzese. Today is a follower favorite, Mob Movie Monday. Everybody seems to like that. That's when I get the most comments, usually the most views, so we have fun with it every Monday. Let me ask you this, is everybody pretty exhausted with all the election results from last week? I know we're still not through it, still not over it, but I'm sure everybody must be exhausted. You want anything serious today? You want to lighten it up? I thought we would lighten it up today. We're going to do a great movie. I'm going to tell you about it in a minute. But first, I have a good announcement for all of you, especially those of you that are fans of Larry Lawton. We have agreed to do an interview in the next several days, and he puts it up when he wants to put it up. We're going to be doing it on his platform first since he reached out to me. I think that's the right thing to do. And then later on, we'll put it on our platform, but I think you're going to enjoy it. Like I said, I don't know Larry well, but looking up on him, and he's got a great site. He's done some great things in the past year, so I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation. So coming up, Larry Lawton, look for it in the next couple of days. I'm sure he'll make an announcement, and I'll keep all my followers up to date on that. So today is, again, Mob Movie Monday, and we're going to be looking at a comedic film, and it's called My Blue Heaven. Yes, I'm lightening it up. We need some comedy. It's been a very serious week. A lot of people are hyperventilating over what happened. So let's go easy. It is a mob-related movie. It's one of the funniest movies ever. It was released back in 1990. Some interesting things about the movie. It was written by Nora Ephron. For those of you that don't know who she is, tremendous screenwriter. Unfortunately, she passed away a couple of years back. But the interesting thing, she was married to Nick Pileggi. Nick Pileggi, Goodfellas, Wise Guy, The Irishman, Nick Pileggi. So it's kind of funny that she writes a comedy about the mob, and Nick Pileggi, as we know, writes all these serious and brilliant movies, I would say. But you know, the fact that she was married to Nick is very interesting because so many things in this movie, okay, were so true to life, but highly exaggerated. I talked about, you know, art imitating life. Well, art imitated life in this movie, but in a very exaggerated, lighthearted way. I thought it was brilliant. I think it was one of the best movies. Steve Martin, who played in the lead, he was Vinnie, Italian guy. I thought he was brilliant in this movie. This movie, I don't know if you ever saw him in The Jerk. I know, a mob guy talking about The Jerk, but he was so funny in that movie. And then Father of the Bride, he was terrific. Steve Martin is great. Rick Moranis, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, whole bunch of other movies. He was terrific. And then, of course, Joan Cusack. They all did a terrific job. So it was written great, directed great, authentic in a comedic way because the dialogue was cool. I'm going to get into a couple of scenes that I bet you'll find hilarious. So look it up. I think you can get it on Amazon Prime, probably on YouTube for free. And I don't know about Netflix, but look it up. If you haven't seen it, most of you have, or many of you have, you got to watch this movie. Watch it today. It'll make you laugh. You'll enjoy it. So, you know, let me give you the overview of it. Vinnie, who is the Steve Martin character, he was a former Wise Guy. Made guy or not, we don't know, but we'll get to that. And he became an informant. Now he's in the witness protection program. He's going to be testifying against some guys in New York. So once he's in the program, what happens? They got to move into another location because his life is in danger because he's testifying. You know the whole drill. And so they bring him out to San Diego, California. Rick Moranis is the FBI agent in charge of Vinnie, Steve Martin. And they bring him out to San Diego. And in the first scene, they bring him into his new house, which is in the suburbs of San Diego. Now, people, I want to tell you this. I was never in the witness protection program. I have nothing to do with that because I didn't get to that. You know, I wasn't a cooperator in that regard. So, but my younger brother was. Some of you know that. You know, he testified against my dad. He was in the program. And I have some insight into the program because I knew a bunch of informants that both testified against me and had experiences in the program. And there's people on YouTube that talk about it now. So we have some insight into it. Something very interesting. I mentioned this in another video, but for those of you that are just tuning in, I believe the program was started in the early 60s or maybe a little bit later than that by a fellow by the name of Jerry Sher, who was part of the Justice Department. Why did they start the witness protection program? Because of my father, Sonny Franzese. That's right, Jerry Sher. This is documented. There was a case that he was investigating where somebody was hijacked. They beat him up, and he went to the law, but he was afraid to testify, allegedly because it was my father that ordered the hijacking. He was afraid he was going to get hurt, get killed, so he wouldn't do it. So Jerry Sher then turns around and says, hey, we need to do something to protect witnesses against the mob. And thus, without getting into the detail, they created the witness protection or the WITSEC program, whatever you want to call it. So that was way back, 60s or 70s, whatever the date was, I don't recall. But anyway, so that's it. So Vinnie is in the witness protection program. He's now removed out to San Diego. He's awaiting until he has to go back to New York to testify against the guys back there. And the whole movie is about the relationship between him and the FBI agent, Rick Moranis. There is a prosecutor, a local DA that gets involved. That's Joan Cusack, because Vinnie can't stay out of trouble when he's out there. And you know, when I say art imitating life, the dialogue was so cool in this movie, in a comedic way. He played the part well, Vinnie. You know, he had the hair slicked back, he wore the suits, his mannerisms, everything was just great. I mean, I laughed throughout the whole movie, I'll be honest. It was just great in that regard. Rick Moranis as the, you know, kind of a nerdy FBI agent, he did a great job in it. And it was funny, the relationship between the two, how it developed. But anyway, in the opening scene, something that was really funny to me, Rick Moranis brings Vinnie into the house, and they're getting settled, and you can see right away, he's so out of touch. You know, he's a city boy, he's grown up in Brooklyn, and like, man, where am I? Out in the middle of nowhere. And Rick Moranis needs to pay him because, you know, when you get in the witness protection program, they give you money, you know, up to a certain date and a certain amount, I guess. And so they ask him for his Social Security number. And, you know, Vinnie's, he's kind of making it up. He never had a Social Security number. He never used a Social Security number. Now, that's not true of all mobsters, but some of them do. I had a Social Security number. As a matter of fact, I'll get into that in a little bit. But he's kind of making it up as he goes along. Very, very funny. And it brought me back to a time when I first married Camille. We had moved into our house, and she opened up a box. And in that box, I had about 4 or 5 different identifications. They were me, you know, one letter maybe removed from the name, different birth date. And she was looking at this, and she says, what is all of this? I said, oh, don't worry about it. You know, I don't know what explanation they gave at that point in time. But she was like, what is all of that? And I had, you know, more than one Social Security number back then. So I understand that, you know, different identities were important to us. So the way he said that, it was just really funny. Also in the scene, Rick Moranis tells him, hey, you know what? My wife, she's a therapist and she works with a lot of the ball players. If you want tickets to the Mets and the Padres tonight, I'll get you tickets. And Vinnie turns around and says, oh, I'm a Yankee fan. And you know what? Most of us were Yankee fans. You know, we came out of Brooklyn, the Bronx. Yes, some of us Queens, but we were mostly Yankee fans back then. I'm still a diehard Yankee fan. So I thought that was pretty funny. A good scene. But as we move along, again, the relationship is starting to develop, and Vinnie's starting to get acclimated. He's going crazy, you know, in his surroundings. He doesn't know what to do with himself. He goes into a supermarket. There's a great scene in there. And as he's in the supermarket, probably never there before, he's still in his suit. He's got these shoes on that he's sliding all over the place, you know, funny, all dressed up. And he does some finagling in there, like he's changing prices on some of the, you know, some of the food products there to get a better deal at the checkout counter. And so he does all of that. And as he's walking out, you know, one of the supervisors walks up to him. He's got a real stern face on. And Vinnie thinks he's going to get in trouble because he was changing prices. And the guy looks up and says, anything we can do for you, any suggestions you might have, just put them in a suggestion box. And Vinnie turns around and he says, yeah, I got a suggestion. Do you have any arugula? And the guy looks at him like, arugula, what is that? Everybody know what arugula is? He says it's a vegetable. It's an Italian, you know, salad. We use it for salad, but it's terrific. But a lot of people, you know, in my, you know, not now, but years ago, they didn't know what arugula was. And it was a big, salad for us. We loved it. But the way he said it again, it brought me back. So many things in this movie just kind of brought me back. Another scene. He gets caught because he hijacked a car, he stole a car, whatever, and he's in the DA's office, local DA. They don't know anything about him because the FBI doesn't release the fact that he's an informant in the witness protection program. Don't tell him anything. So he's sitting down with the DA, Joan Cusack, who did a great job, and he's trying to talk his way or explain his way out of stealing the car. She's grilling him, and he's making it up as he goes along. And it just, how smooth he was, how likable he was during that scene. And I got to tell you, a lot of mob guys, now not all of them, trust me, but some of them were very, very smooth, very, very good on their feet, knew how to get around people. I think, to an extent, I had a fairly expertise in that regard, knew how to get around people, knew how to put my arm around them and, just kind of make them like you and, be able to get them to do your bidding. And you got to watch that scene because he was so smooth in his explanation. Of course, he was lying all the way through, but he was so smooth in his explanation. It was just a great scene. And then Rick Moranis comes in afterwards and rescues him from the local DA, which, by the way, happens all the time. Happened in my dad's case. I think I told you, and this is not pleasant, but when one of the chief witnesses against my father was axing his wife, Eleanor Cordero, practically killed her. He didn't get indicted for it because the FBI protected him because he was a former witness against my father. So, the FBI, the Marshal Service, whatever, they're very protective against people in the witness protection program. I should say really the FBI because they were still handling him at that point, even though officially the marshals are in charge of people in the WITSEP program. But it was a little twist on that in this movie. So that was really, really funny. And as it moves along, we see that Vinnie goes into a pet store. He sees the DA in there. He's helping her out because she accidentally put her son's turtle in the grinder, in the garbage disposal in the sink. So she had to go to get a new one. And Vinnie meets her in there, and he meets a friend back there, somebody else that was in the witness protection program that he knew from New York. So after there's a little, scene in the pet store, Joan Cusack walks out. And it's funny, Vinnie locks the door and he turns around and he looks at the other guy and he goes, stool pigeon. And the other guy goes, informant. And he goes, snitch. And they go back and forth, just yelling at each other in a joking way, calling each other all these names because they were informants in the witness protection program. But it was a good scene. But I will tell you this, I doubt that they'll ever put two guys together that are in the, from back east in the program in the same area. They try not to do that. And if they do, it was a mistake. If you recall, when Henry Hill was in the witness protection program by accident while he was in prison and he was on separation from other mob guys, they put him in Terminal Island where I was and where a bunch of other mob guys were. They spotted Henry. I spotted Henry there and basically saved his life by having him PC up because the other guys in there, they would have hurt him, no doubt about it. So those mistakes are made sometimes, but I doubt that it happens too often because I think they pretty well have it together in the WITSEC program. By the way, another fact, to the best of my knowledge, they have never lost anybody in the witness protection program. They've never had anybody, killed, assassinated, murdered, whatever you want to call it. I think they've had a pretty good record in that department. So another great scene that I thought was just so funny. The guy that Vinnie meets, the guy from back east, he lets Vinnie know there's a bunch of people down here. There's a crime wave here. So many people that were in the WITSEC program, they put them here in San Diego, which again would never happen. But there's a scene when they all get together and they're reminiscing and it's the good old bad days again. And they start to talk about, the witness protection program, how much money they're making. They're all broke because for whatever reason, their money ran out. And Vinnie says, we're broke. What are you kidding? This is a crime wave over here. So they start to think of ways to earn money. And of course, it's all criminal activity. But the funny part of that scene is they're all sitting down and they start to, say things in Italian. They start to say words. And I got to tell you, nothing drives me more crazy than when people mispronounce Italian words like, capisci. That means, do you understand? And I had people say capisci. And I say, what? It's capisci. That's how we say it, Another one, did you ever hear people say, pasta, manicotti. Manicotti. I look at him like, what the heck is that? It's manigot. That's how we say it, manigot. Remember Donnie Brasco? He says, Donnie manigot. Very, very funny. Al Pacino said that line. And then marinara sauce. Marinara. It's marinara sauce. Marinara. So, you know, when I hear these things again, it brings me back. But that was a very funny scene. Just the guy saying, look where we are. These people don't know from anything. They use ketchup in the gravy, all that kind of stuff. And by the way, we used to never say sauce for pasta. It was always gravy. It became sauce later on. It probably always was sauce, but for some reason, you know, back in the day, it was always gravy. My grandmother, I'm making a gravy on Sunday. That's how we used to have it. It was funny. Another great scene is when Vinnie goes out and he's back in New York now because he's going to testify, and he's getting a suit made up. Rick Moranis finds out that, you know, he had went to his tailor. He's scared. He's in the neighborhood. Somebody's going to spot him. He's going to get killed. So Rick Moranis goes after him. And Vinnie looks at him like, what kind of suit is that? And people, I want to tell you something. When we saw an FBI agent, we didn't need to see the badge. We saw the suit and the shoes. They were usually wingtip shoes, and they were dressed in brown so often. Now, I want to tell you something. Mob guys did not dress in brown. Brown was off limits. But a lot of FBI agents, a lot of law enforcement people did. So, you know, Vinnie says to him, you got to change that suit. So he gets him sized up for a new suit. But it was just funny. Again, all of these things that was so, you know, so lifelike. I mean, they actually happened, but here highly exaggerated and funny. Very, very funny. So, and another thing that was cool here, Rick Moranis started to like Vinnie a lot. And Vinnie really had an influence on him, trying to get the nerd out of him, trying to get him, you know, to be a little more manly, a little more hip, you know, in with what was going on. And gradually, Rick Moranis started to almost take on the character of Vinnie. He started mimicking him a little bit. He started talking like him a little bit. Brings me back to Joe Pistone, Donnie Brasco. Now, in that case, he had to act like mob guys in order to survive as an undercover agent. But I've met him afterwards, and I told you before, you know, I like him a lot. When he was on the street, he was doing his job. He didn't frame people. He was an FBI agent, and what we said on the street, hey, we understand you guys are on one side, we're on the other. It's your job to come and get us. It's our job to evade you and avoid you. Just don't frame us. And, you know, I believe that's true of Donnie Brasco, of Joe Pistone. But we met afterwards, and we actually spoke at a couple of conferences afterwards, and people in the audience said, you know, Michael, he looks more like a street guy than you do. He talks more like a street guy than you do. He actually took on that character, and it kind of stuck with him afterwards, and it's amazing. And, you know, in some cases, in order for these agents, undercover agents, to survive, you know, they have to do something like that. They got to take on the character, the moves, the look, the conversation, everything in order to survive in what they do. You know, and then in the end, Vinnie actually transforms himself. He becomes a good guy. And there was another funny scene over there because in one scene, you know, Vinnie said that he never picked up a gun. He never used a gun. He never, you know, he never had to shoot anybody. He said that's why he always remained kind of a low-level gangster, which is true. If you can't handle a gun, you're not going to be a made guy, that's for sure, you know, because you got to do what you got to do. You might be an associate, who knows, but you're not going to be a made guy. But then in the end, they're in a baseball field. Two guys are coming after Vinnie from New York. They're going to shoot him. Vinnie has the gun, and boom, 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 he shoots him. And Rick Moranis says, hey, I thought you said you never held a gun. And Vinnie says, I lied. Just a great scene. Just the way he pulled it off was terrific. And so that was kind of the ending scene. But one thing I will say, he did transform himself. He did become a good guy. So that town had an effect on him. And people, I will leave you with this, okay? I was in the mob or in that life, or, you know, I grew up in it in a way with my dad, even though that's not what I originally was part of. I've seen it all my life. I was in it for well over 20 years, and that's who I was. And for the last 25 years, I think because I've held myself accountable to good people, to my God, and tried to really transform my life, I've been able to do that. So this is to all of you out there that are struggling with anything that you might have done in your life. I tell you again, of course, stay off the streets, stay out of the bad stuff. It's a dead-end street. It's what I tell kids all the time. You can make a change in your life. I've done it. And if I can do it, anybody can do it because, you know, I had that mob mentality for quite some time. So I believe Vinnie transformed himself in that movie. It's not impossible. You can do it. That's the moral, really, of the whole movie. It was fun, it was light, but in the end, he became a good guy. Why? He had good people around him. He fell in love. He had an agent that kind of, wore off even on him. He had kids around him. And, so his heart kind of changed a little bit, transformed himself. I don't know what happened in New York to cause him to become an informant. That's irrelevant for the movie. So that's it. My Blue Heaven. I recommend that you watch it. You're going to enjoy it. Get away from all this election stuff. Whatever's going to happen there is going to happen. I will have something to say about that again at some point in time. Not now. Right now, we need some relief. So that's it for today. I tell you this from my heart now. Be safe. Be healthy. God bless all of you. See you next time.